Okay, okay, everybody. We are recording. This is David P. France, and I'm coming to you from Basel, Switzerland. Before we get started with the interview, I want to advise or ask everyone to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the YouTube and BitChute channel. We are David P. France TV, and this is a platform for creators and creative people, artists, inventors, thought leaders, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. And I am delighted to introduce to you, you guys, the audience, um, someone who I'm related to, which I've known that I've been related to her, but I've just seen her on Facebook, you know, like her name sort of floating about. Yeah. So this is Taifa Harmony Bartz.
Hi, everyone.
Look, it's great to see you again. We were on a Zoom call with the Bartz family maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And you were the first one that said, I'm in. Like I had been wanting to do this for over a year, and I told one of the members of our family, Paula, that it was something that I wanted to do.
Yes.
But introduce yourself. You were an artist, right? I mean, like clearly, you know, you're a creative person. You're doing your thing. You're in New York, right?
Yeah, I'm in New York right now, actually doing some production for some projects that we have going on, you know, as an artist. And I'm sure you know this yourself. We're having to be creative with how we get our artistic expression out and also how we monetize it, you know, because let's be honest, we still got to pay these bills.
Yes. So let's give people more background of sort of how we connected, because Taifa is she's my second cousin, and her father is, from what somebody told me, because I didn't know this, is my first cousin once removed. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Which I find fascinating.
Well, wait. So your father and my father are first cousins, correct? That's right. Or are they brothers?
They're first cousins.
Okay, yeah. So then your first cousin once removed.
Once removed, right? So yeah. And this is what I suspected, everybody. I mean, and we're going to talk about this. DNA is a very big deal. I don't know if people have really understand. It's a big deal. Who you're related to is a big deal. Who you are and your parents, that's a big deal. And I think, you know, we can talk about this on and on, but, you know, people don't give it as much weight. And it really has been part of my journey as a person, as an artist, on both sides of the family. So I had already done some digging on my mother's side of the family.
Right.
And there were certain questions that I had with regard to my father's side of the family, and you and your relatives and the direct family, your family provided some answers. So tell us what type of artist you are, and then we'll talk about the DNA stuff later. Tell me what you do. I know that you sing. It looks like you perform.
I am a singer. I'm also an actress. I direct. I produce. I'm a writer. I write songs as well as stories, plays, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, all of those things are things that have called to me creatively to do. And, you know, it's really funny that you talk about DNA, because when I grew up between North Carolina and New York, because my mom and dad were not together and they lived in those different states. And I decided to move permanently to the northern United States area. I'm in the New York, New Jersey area. And when I did and began to go around into, you know, the artistic circles, especially the music, and people would find out who my dad was, Gary Bartz. And they would say, oh, well, that's why you're in your music, because it's in your DNA. And, you know, I was just like, yeah, okay. I mean, it was just like kind of one of those comments. But now as that we're kind of on this journey, it really brings a deeper meaning to what they were telling me, you know, and I don't know if they meant it deeper, but I know that now I'm receiving it different.
Yeah, you know? Of course. I mean, it's very clear to me. I mean, I will tell you how I connected to your father. Gary Bartz is a well-respected, well-renowned, world-class musician who's played with the best of the best, right? Now,
Two Grammys.
Two Grammys. Miles Davis. Give us some of the
Miles
people that
Davis court. He played with him. He played with Dizzy. He played with Art Blake. Like all of the great jazz people that you can name. Ron Carter. You know, who is the most. He is literally the most recorded bass player of all time in the Guinness Book of World Records. Is my godfather. Like these are the people that were in my house all the time. So. You know, if I wasn't going to be into music, I don't know what I would have been into because that's kind of all that was around me at that time. You know?
Well, what's interesting is that when I was in New York and I was living in Harlem, and it was a number of years, maybe 13 years I lived in Harlem, a friend of mine who worked for the New York mayor's office, and at that time it was Bloomberg, said to me, I have some tickets to the New York Jazz Festival. Why don't you come? Like, I can get you in or whatever. I was like, yeah, okay.
Right.
So I get there, and it's like a lot of people that kind of reminded me of Gary, right? Like, you know, the way that rap is to our generation in terms of numbers of people that are doing it. I think for Gary's generation, the numbers of jazz people, I would believe, were comparable. And the audience reflected that generation, right? So the people kind of walking around look the same. They're just older. Right. So I looked around and I said, man, I think Gary would be here, right? Yeah. And I semi bragged to the person that gave me the tickets. I said, you know, I told you about him, right? And she's like, yeah, you told me. 10 minutes later, he walked right in front of me.
Wow.
He walked right in front of me. And then I was like, you see, I told you, right? So that was one time. And I think I also told you another time when I was here in Switzerland living, and I went to the jazz festival. There were people from New Orleans that were there working. So they said, well, we're going to be in Switzerland, so why don't you come, you know, and it was the Ascona Jazz Festival. So I said, okay, yeah, fine. And then we go and we get out and we're walking down one street and someone stopped us and said, no, you can't go down that street. You have to go down this other street. We went down the other street. And in between the houses were big, not billboards, but like, you know, like cloth
posters and murals.
Posters,
and
yeah. And one of the posters, and huge, right? And one of the posters was of Gary. And I've been looking for it all this evening, but I can't find it. But it literally is hanging from one part of the house all the way across the street to the other. So there were many, many banners like this going down the street, going amazing. To the jazz festival. Right. So at this point, I had to say to myself, well, David, there's a reason why you are here. It's not just right. And I believe it's one of the mysteries of life that some people know about, but not the general population. Right. They don't
it feels like
almost
see it. Some of that stuff might be preordained. Depending on what you believe in. Like you were definitely, there for a reason, you know?
Yeah. Like, why am I here? Like, why, you know, and it's anyway. So we go back to you. Like, what type of music? I mean, we were on that the Zoom call. And then I think a couple days later, I see you had a live Facebook video or a live Facebook, and you were singing your butt off. And I was like, she's singing like that? She's singing like that? And then, of course, I text, you know, my sister is like, oh, she can sing too, blah, blah, blah. She said, really? I'm like, Janine, you got to check her out. You got to check her out. So, I mean, what's the style? I mean, it seems like you can sing a lot of different styles, but I mean,
I do sing a lot of different styles. And one of the things that I really credit my dad on is that, you know, with jazz musicians, and I don't know if you probably do know this, but, you know, when hip hop came along, that's like my generation, right? When hip hop came along. But there was a melding of jazz and hip hop because a lot of the hip hop artists used jazz samples for their tracks. And they used a lot of dad samples. And luckily, he was one of the jazz musicians who embraced this new form of music. I mean, every generation, there's a genre of music that comes along and people are like, oh, that horrible music, like rock and roll was one. And then the blues, jazz was even, you know, ostracized at one point, and then hip hop. But he was always embracing of every type of music, which meant that my music education was, if it's music and you like it, then do it. period.
Right.
So
Right.
I know the jazz standards. I am a jazz singer, but I also sing neo soul. I also sing R&B. I do pop. I was classically trained, so I had to learn opera. You know, I lived in the Bible Belt, so I had to sing gospel if I wanted to work. You know,
Yes.
and I love gospel, but that's not my main thing. You know, I really connect with soul. You know, anything that's soul like with like jazz or R&B and neo soul. Those are the things that really, really move me to perform them. So yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about growing up as a young, and we talked about this a bit.
Yeah.
Someone, I mean, growing up, your parents were in two different states. Like, what was it like for you growing up as a young girl and then, finding your way to where you are now?
It's very interesting because I find, because I didn't live in the house with my dad all the time. I saw him a couple of times a year. I go up for summers, holidays, that type of thing, to come up to New York or Baltimore, where our family is based out of. But because it's really strange, because even though I wasn't there, I was interested in a lot of the same music that he was around and didn't know it. For instance, I can think of one artist in particular, Phyllis Hyman.
Right.
She always touched my soul with her singing. And I really, really loved her, and I was devastated when she committed suicide. But what I didn't know is that during this time I was discovering her, my dad was touring with her.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about this, guys. Let's see if we can get it back here.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Okay, now we're in there. What was I saying? I'm sorry.
You say your father was touring with her.
Yeah,
with
my
Phyllis Hyman,
father.
and that's when you discovered.
I discovered her, not knowing that my father was actually touring with her at the time that I was discovering her music.
Right.
And it wasn't until later, she had long gone, when I found out that he had recorded one of my favorite songs, Bet You by Collie Wow, with her. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know all of this stuff, but my musical path was such a parallel that I was still in line with it, even though I wasn't in the household.
Yeah.
So, but going back to how I got started,
So Taifa.
going back to how I got started.
Yes.
He did all of these albums in the 70s.
Right.
So I, of course, would receive a copy of each album as he recorded them. And as a result, I was taught very, very young how to work the record player so I could listen to my daddy's albums. So after I listened to his albums, I started going through the stacks I started going through, all of the music that my mother and daddy had collected,
right.
all of the albums. And I discovered a lady by the name of Aretha Franklin and a gentleman by the name of Marvin Gaye.
Right, sure.
And then I discovered an album that he did with a lady by the name of Tammy Terrell. And when I tell you, I used to wake up, I couldn't have been more than about 3 or 4 years old. I would wake up before everybody in the house, and I would go to the record player and I would play these albums from beginning to end, and I would learn them from beginning to end. So I was learning Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye and Tammy. I was learning how to sing these songs really, really young, not knowing what I was going to do with them. I was just drawn to it.
Right.
And eventually, when you're a little girl, everyone's like, what are you going to be when you grow up? I've never said anything other than a singer. I can remember the first time I said it, I was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I think I changed from a lower octave to a higher octave, but I was still in key. And I was about 3 or 4 at that time as well. And my mom looks at me and she's like, so what do you want to be? And I was like, I'm going to be a singer. Not I want to be. I'm going to be a singer. And she was like, oh, okay. And it's just been on since then. As far as the acting, I had a 3rd grade teacher who decided to cast me in a play. And I caught the acting bug. What can I say? After that play, it was like, I was like, oh, you can go on and do these lines and people will laugh or cry with you. And I love that. So you know, the rest is history. You know, I went on to school, middle, high school, all of that. I was always in the band. I was always in chorus. I was always in the acting thing. I was always taking dance. I went on to college and did the same thing. And you know,
I'm laughing
been,
because I mean, it's a similar, I mean, if I told you it's a similar path, I mean, it's exactly, I mean, not singing, right? Like, even though I am challenging myself to do that, right? But in terms of musicality, you know, for sure, right? For sure.
Well, as a dancer, you have to have the musicality in order to hit the beat. You know what I'm saying? With the movements, you know, I'm definitely not a professional dancer like you, but I had to take quite a few dance classes in order to be a musical theater kid, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing. It really is amazing because when I texted my sister or like email, whatever you call it, and said, yo, you need to check her out. Like, she's singing, right? She's singing. And then it became clear, oh yeah, and there's somebody else in their family that's like musical theater. And I'm like, yeah, like her cousin, right? Like her, Halima's.
You talk about Eric?
Yeah, like Halima's son.
Eric Berryman, yes. He's won all sorts of awards and everything for acting. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I peeped that really early, but no one was connecting it like I was connecting it, right? So I did.
I connected it. I did.
Yeah. Like, so for example, this is how we were introduced to Gary's albums, or to Gary in general, which was whenever he would come back to Baltimore, whenever he was in Baltimore, we would get the word that he was in town. Yes. So then in the beginning, we just went over there and we didn't know what was going on. Then after a while, like, we would get the message, and then we say, oh, well, are we going to go over there? Because we knew we would go over to Aunt Pauline's house, right?
Right.
And I just remember being in the basement and
yes, that's where the kids played while the grown-ups hung out upstairs.
Exactly, right. And there was a not a hammock. What do you think? The thing that was hanging from the ceiling, right? It was a
was it like a chair that was hanging off a chain or something?
Like a wicker, not a wicker chair, but you know what I mean. It's like one of those chairs that you could spin around in, right?
Yes, I remember that chair. Oh, you just made me remember it. I forgot about it till you said it.
Yeah. So I mean, we would go in the basement, and I just remember kind of hanging out there, and you know, Fared was there. Fared is, you know, my other cousin. My brother. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's very vivid. And I remember the album Brothers Johnson, Strawberry, I think it was the one with Strawberry 20.
Strawberry Letter.
Paula and those guys had always had different tastes in music.
Right.
Than what my father had, right? Similar, some crossover. But when I went over there, I would always be like, oh, look at what they got. Or look at what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Very curious as to just how other people lived, other members of my family. So I never forgot it. Never forgot it. Gary, I think it was one time, it was Gary and Paul in the basement, and I think all of us younger people.
Right.
You know? And I don't know if you know this, but my father's younger brother was a contemporary of Paula and Gary.
Really?
Right. So they used to hang tough. Like, I think it was Craig and Paula and Gary. So whenever Paula or whenever Gary was back, Craig would.
Right? Oh yeah, they was hanging when Dad was in town. I know he always went to see cousin Paula. That's his girl. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But you know what's funny about this DNA thing? Because I have it on both sides. I have 3 uncles that all are musicians. And then all of my siblings do something. Like I have one brother who sings, one who raps, one who plays the bass, and one who's a dancer, and then one who sings. Now, they didn't go into those as their fields, but they all have that talent. But now I overheard my dad saying something one time. We were at one of his concerts, and the grandson of one of the guys he was playing with was there. And he asked him, because his father was also a musician, so it's the father and the grandfather. And he asked him, well, do you do music as well? And he said, oh no, I don't do music, you know. And he, you know, I decided that's not my lane. And my dad said something very poignant, that when you're an artist and you decide to choose it as your profession, it has to be something that you have to do, not that you just want to do, and if you have an interest in it and you kind of like you, it's got to be something in your soul that I have to create music. If I don't ever sing in front of nobody again, just singing, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just singing, period, makes me happy. So, you know, or making people laugh, you know, when I'm doing like a comedy sketch, you know,
Right.
or making people feel something when I'm doing something dramatic. But mostly the music, I always end up back to the music. It's always there.
That's phenomenal. I mean, it really is. And I would say another time, let me give you another coincidence, right? We're on Facebook, and I somehow ended up in Austria. Now I had forgotten, you know, my parents had dropped, oh, Gary was in, you know, Gary's in Austria sometime. This was years ago. And I was at an artist, not a symposium, what do you call it? When all the, like a collective. It was like a whole week of hanging out with artists.
Oh, wow.
That sounds from like India, fun. Some from the UK, maybe someone from Italy, really abroad. And the two guys that were running the show, running the symposium, were from Russia. So I think I posted on Facebook, oh, you know, I'm in Austria, blah, blah, blah. And somehow Gary saw that and said, oh yeah, Austria's great. You know, I live there or something.
I used to joke with him whenever he would go out of town. I'd be like, can I just get in your suitcase? I just want to be there. I ain't got to perform or nothing. I just want to soak in the energy of all of those artists in one place at the same time. But now what we're kind of doing now is we're doing kind of genius houses where we get together with a couple of artists and we just do a think tank where we think up ideas of what we should do to be creative and get our art out there. And, you know, how can we get it to people? Because people are missing live performances.
Absolutely.
They are.
That's why when I saw you doing it, I was like, whoa.
So let me tell you what that was. I'm going to tell you what that was. So my birthday was January 5th.
That's right.
And I decided, you know, most of the time people spend money on a party. They buy food and liquor and spend all this money. I said, no, I'm going to pay my band to come and we're just going to jam. And that's going to be a beautiful birthday for me. And that's what we did. We just had like a good old birthday party session where we just jammed and like, let's do this song. No, let's do this song. And I decided to go live. I've never gone live before on Facebook. Really?
Well, was
never done it. I've gone into the social media world kicking and screaming, but you know, it's part of it's part of life now of an artist, definitely. If you want to get your stuff out there. So I said, well, you know, I'll try it. And the response was great. So, you know, I'm definitely going to do some more of that.
I think, look, I know what I got to do, right? I got to do the TikTok. I really don't want to, but I have to do it.
Yeah,
I don't want to do it, but I have to
do
it.
TikTok, Instagram.
TikTok, Instagram. Like, I even think TikTok is even better.
It's bigger than Instagram because what happens is the TikToks find their way onto Instagram and Facebook.
Yes, yes. Yes.
So,
and look, the TikTok, what I love about it is that there's some really good creative people on there. So not only is in other words, when you do Instagram, you just slap a picture on, right?
Right.
When you do TikTok, you've got to actually think about.
You've got to create something.
You've got to create something yourself.
Yeah,
they give you the tools.
That just gave me an idea. Like, you're a dancer. We need to do a family dance TikTok. Man.
Well, look,
we've got to do it.
I know that is the key, because if they're saying to me, well, that's the, you know, dance is the big thing on TikTok. And I'm like, Dave, you need to be on there. You need to be on there. You need to be on there. So that's been my thing that's been hanging over my head. I will get to it.
Whenever you're ready to create it, I'm willing to help push whatever it is you come up with, man, because that'll be fun. That could be my introduction to TikTok.
The thing is that, like you, there's a part of me that's sort of old school. Well, I'm assuming you're old school. Like, I'm still not finished with how things used to be, right? So for me to kind of say, hey, you know, I still am hanging on to that, right? To how we came up. I'm not somebody that was born into technology, so I'm in between. So for me, it's like, dang, I have to do another. I got to do
Well, how
another
about
one.
do both? You do the stuff you've been doing and just add it. And that's what I've come to, because, you know, I have young kids. They're like in their 20s, right?
Uh-huh.
So they're one of the main reasons that I'm up on some of this stuff, because, you know, I follow them and we're kind of tight, you know, so I check out their little, you know, social medias and see what they're posting and stuff like that. But I feel like if we can still hold on to live, there's nothing like a live show, right? And we know that, but we can't do that right now. But we could bring what we normally would bring live online.
Well, you
And
did
one
it.
of the reasons I really got with technology is because, you know, as an artist, I've had to have other jobs in order to make the ends meet. And one of my jobs was actually doing tech support for Apple.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, when I tell you I was not an Apple person before I started working there,
Sure,
but
sure,
they were
sure.
like, well, you're technically proficient. And I was like, I know how to send an email and text. And they were like, most people don't know how to do that. So we're going to teach you the rest. And once I learned all of the technology, I was like, yo, do you know how much I could do with this? Like, I can actually record a song on my phone and take it into the studio.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
so if you use it to further the stuff that we as old school artists are used to doing, then I think that we get the best of both worlds.
Look, some of the best responses to my social media posts have been when I was dancing.
Yeah,
That
of course.
it never fails. When I say it
Because
never,
that's you. That's your inner. That's who you are.
isn't that crazy?
So you're
It's
showing
true though.
exactly who you are, and people connect with that.
Well, I'm telling you, I mean, and currently right at this moment, I'm connected with a flamenco school in Zurich.
Ooh.
And it's a husband and wife team that's actually getting a divorce.
Oh.
But they did not tell me that they were getting a divorce until, I mean, months later, right? And
Wow.
I would see them like they were kind of competitive with one another, not less so him than her, right? So it's like, why are they, you know, why are they competing? You know, even to the point where they were, and this is where I love it. Like, you're gonna understand this. So when I was growing up, I grew up in Baltimore, and then we moved to northern New Jersey, right outside of New York. And it wasn't until I started hearing some of the music from coming out of New York, and it was on the New York stations. It was sort of a mix of Latin and Black artists, like the rappers and the club artists and so on. So when I heard that, that was so different than what was going on in Baltimore, right? So cut to many years later, and I learned sort of Latin influenced dance while I was in that space.
Right.
So cut to years later, I fell very ill right before the COVID, and part of me is thinking that I actually caught COVID or some variation of it before
I think I might have had it too. Yeah.
Before it got big, because it was terrible, to the point where I said to myself, I need to do something that moves my body. So I was like, okay, flamenco, right? That and my feet somehow, you know, I connected the idea of just the constant moving.
Right.
So I did that in Basel, and I didn't even think about it. They were like, okay, we're gonna have this show. You're gonna be in the show. Yeah, I'll be in the show. Right? I didn't care. I was like, I just need to keep my body moving.
Right.
Or I may not even be here, you know, in the future. Right? So the husband from this school in Zurich had come into Basel just to drum, just to be like, well, I don't know what they call it, a drum, just to go do the percussion, right? So after the show, he said, he was like, he comes up to me. People were coming up to me. That's when I knew. I was like, all right, here we go again. Here we go again, right? So years later, when things started to mellow out and I got a job in Zurich, I said, I need to find someplace. And it turns out that the place that I found was this guy and his soon-to-be ex-wife.
Right.
So when I say that, when they do the choreography in Spain, right, I guess in this sort of culture, the music and the choreography is everything.
I know.
It's almost like,
I love that influence.
They love it. It's funny because I grew up in Jersey, right? Where, I mean, some people know about it, but it wasn't nationwide. It wasn't community wide. You had to go find it, right?
Right.
Though it was as if when I'm in that class, they're like, you could see them like, we're doing this choreography and like, you know, it is part of who they are.
It's a connection almost. You can feel like, for me, I feel connected to music when I'm in it, when I'm listening to it, when I'm performing it. But I connect especially with the drums because you can feel it in your body, right?
That's right.
And I can remember, you'll like this story. I can remember I know I wasn't yet 5 years old, but I was going to the studio with my dad.
Yes.
And he was recording an album.
Yes.
And so they were like, well, listen, you've got to be very quiet because we're recording, right?
Yes.
And I don't know how a 3 or 4 year old, like, I just knew, okay, you can't talk, you know, like most of the time a 2, 3 year old, you're just going to be like, wow. And I don't care what mommy, daddy says. But I was really respectful of it. And they were like, where do you want to sit? I said, I want to sit in the drummer's booth because there was like this booth where the drums were. And there was like glass all around it. And they said, but it's going to be really loud. And I was like, I like the way the drums feel in my body. I remember saying that. And I kind of saw the grown-ups kind of look like, okay, you know. So I ended up sitting in the booth with him, with the drummer as he was, and I don't even remember what album that was, but I can just remember that so distinctly that I could feel them, and it made me feel it made me feel so happy, just that beat, feeling that beat. Now that you want to talk about DNA, that's probably that drum thing from the motherland or from, you know, the Native American circle or one of those, you know what I mean?
I think it is. I think it is. And I'm so sure that it is because, and I'll give you a couple examples. The first is that when I heard Gary on YouTube talking about rhythm.
Right.
And as he's talking about it, it's as if his thought about it is coming out of my
your mouth. Yes.
Coming out of my mouth. Because I think exactly the same way with regard to rhythm. And that's the one thing. Second thing, my niece is a dancer, right? And one time she said something. Oh, this is when I knew it. She goes, you know, because such and such, she's talking about, I guess, Black people. And she said, oh, because, you know, Black people have bass in their voice. Like she was talking about Black men have bass. And she's, I think, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Like she's, you know, has discernment on the you know, like the different volume or the quality of the sound coming out of people's mouth. The third thing, which is it's gonna lead us into the next thing, which is I'm in well, there are two other things. I go to Austria because there's a woman who I saw in London from Spain who from where the heck is she from? Badass. She was, I mean, and I went saw her by accident, and I had never seen anybody be that percussive before.
Right.
And
was she a dancer or a drummer?
She's a dancer, but I mean, she's a flamenco dancer. Like she's hitting her, you know, like. And this is where it gets a little murky, right? We talked about this because I believe that, you know, because there have been 800 some odd years of Moorish rule in Spain, southern Spain. You have that whole Middle Eastern region, right? Spain, Morocco, maybe even Algeria and the like, right? There is a connection between all of that. And when you go to Spain, you'll see the Arabic writing like underneath, right?
Yeah.
So she was one of the baddest dancers I'd ever seen in my life.
Oh, wow. That's high praise coming from another dancer. Did you throw your shoe at her?
She was one of the baddest I had ever seen in my life. And I'm in London watching her, and it was an accident that I went.
Right.
And I'm in another class.
No, an accident. It wasn't an accident.
I'm in another class here in Zurich or in Switzerland. And it was like one of the chief flamenco people, right? Similar to, I guess, what Gary is to the jazz world.
Right.
So I said, I got to go to that. I got to go to his thing. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I felt I had to be there. This dude is like
You were
80 years old.
compelled to go. Yeah.
I was compelled to go. Well, it turned out, not only did he like call me out in front of everybody, but then
Oh, wow.
the woman who I saw on stage was having a workshop, and one of the women in the class was promoting it, and that workshop was in Austria. So here I go to Austria.
Yeah.
Taifa, I didn't even know. I just threw myself in there because I was like, yo, I just need to be around this lady. I need to be around this lady. I'm gonna figure out half the stuff I didn't even know. I just was doing it. Like I would be watching her, and she turned around, and I was the only guy in there. And I thought, yo, this is it. Like now, if my day, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna put it to you this way: if my day could be like what it felt like when I was with her every day,
it'd be a good day, right?
I'm like, look, I'm gonna leave my job. Like I'm already scheming. I'm already.
You got to call the job, be like, yeah, put the boss on the phone. I ain't never coming back.
I'm already scheming. I've schemed 101 ways. I've schemed 101 ways because I was like, look, I need to be dancing with her. I need to be dancing with her.
Yeah,
that's how strong it is. And it was her percussion. It was the way she was like, I'd never seen any.
Oh, I love when they do that. Like there's something similar, of course, with tap, but it's a different rhythm, right?
But the thing that you brought up about the drums, it comes back, and this is my point. It comes back to the drums and the knowledge that is from this sound, right? That you hear. When I was in Spain another time, and I stayed with this woman who I believe was Black. This is going to lead us into the next thing. But it wasn't clear that she was Black, right?
Right.
She was very, very, very fair. And the flamenco school set me up with her. And she's like looking at me. She goes, "You a musician?" I'm like, "No, I'm dancing." She's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And this is all in Spanish. I'm figuring out how to talk to her.
Right.
So I stayed all the way in her back room, right? When I go to the back room, there's a picture of all her grandchildren. And then there is a black baby doll sitting on the counter in the middle of like
all of these people
of all of her grandchildren, whatever. And then there's a black baby doll, right? So I was like,
wow.
Okay, I already know.
So, yeah. I know where this is going.
And she came up to me, I think said halfway through my stay, she goes, are you okay here? Meaning, are you able to, move through?
Navigate. Yeah.
Navigate, because obviously you're Black, right?
Right.
You're Black.
Right.
And I'm like,
but I mean, if you grew up like I did, and I think probably you kind of grew up the same, we were around everybody's, right? But there were also instances for me, because I was in like top classes in all of my in schooling, that sometimes I was the only Black kid in there.
Right.
So you have to navigate this different culture that you're a part of. They don't know your culture and you don't really know theirs, you know what I mean? And learning to navigate that was very interesting as a child.
Look, I mean, it's very clear. It's very clear that you and I share a lot in terms of how we are, how we see the world, really.
Yes, it's very simpatico. I agree. Yeah.
And the thing that is so weird or funny is that you guys, I remember hearing of her. I remember hearing of you, but I don't remember meeting you at all.
I don't remember meeting you either, but listen, I didn't even know about some of this side, Baltimore side of my family, because when I was really coming up there, I was so small that I wasn't interested in who was cousins, why, what I mean? It was just, we're going over to Aunt Pauline's house to play with my cousins, period. That was it. So you might have been one of them little boys I was playing with, and I don't even remember.
I don't remember. And just so you guys know,
you only heard good things about me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just remember because I would let's put it this way. My father is the one that's directly related to you, but he doesn't know. Right. My mother is the one that would keep the record, right? Whenever we'd ask about my father's family, how crazy this is, we'd ask my mother, she would know the whole story.
Yeah.
Right.
She was interested in it, right?
Yeah, because so my mother's the one that told us about you.
Oh,
not
wow.
My father.
Well, hats off to moms.
Mom, who do you think? I mean, we would ask, I mean, this sounds crazy. My mom is a very fair-skinned lady, right? And I brought this up with someone else who I'm trying to get on the show, which was back then, and I don't know if it's still prevalent now, maybe in some circles, but there's this issue of being light skinned, and it was for our family, it was something that was lurking. It wasn't, in our face.
It wasn't put out there, but we knew that we were lighter than a lot of the other people in the area. And for some people, that was the issue. Like, they didn't like you on sight just because of your skin complexion. And it wasn't because it wasn't necessarily because you were Black, but because you were such a light-skinned Black person.
Right. Now, I didn't.
And I mean, that's what I got. Literally, when I moved to North Carolina, I had little girls following me home from school wanting to fight me because I, quote unquote, thought I was cute because I was light-skinned with long hair. And I was like, what? Like, it never occurred to me to think I was better than anyone else because of what my skin or my hair looked like.
Yeah.
But they were very upset. I was like, why are they so mad at me? I don't understand.
Well, I don't necessarily I didn't have the same thing as how you grew up, but there were definitely issues because my mother was the lightest one in our family. Yeah. Besides my grandmother, right? And so my
conversely, I wanted the darker ones in my family.
I mean,
as light as I am.
I think what's amazing is it's not only part of the Black American, experience.
Colonialism, and a lot of people try
but
to
also in Latin America and other countries that were colonial.
Oh yeah, it's very much a thing. Like in this think tank I was talking about, we definitely want to do something on colorism in all of the communities, not just the Black community, because it's hurtful for everyone. It can be. In any case, I know a lot of my dark-skinned sisters felt not beautiful growing up, and that might have been the source of why they would pick on me. But I wanted to be that darker skinned woman and see that beautiful like I wanted that, you know what I mean? So I was confused. Why do you know what I mean? Like, look, I want to be like you, you know what I mean?
It's still an issue. Like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a couple of guests on that can speak directly to it. I haven't been able to do it yet. It was still but I think it's a huge enough issue. Just because, I mean, that's one of the things. And I told someone, there's this particular guest who I'm trying to get on who is a co-owner of a hair salon or something.
Okay.
So I said, this thing with the hair, I said, you got to come on and talk about it. You got it. I mean, that in and of itself, right, is a.
I had definitely issues because I have the curly hair that's popular now, I guess is the word. Everyone is like raving about this curly, quote unquote, mixed chick hair. It was not popular when I was growing up. It was not. Like, you were supposed to have your hair straightened with a chemical perm or some kind of, you was not supposed to be wearing this natural hair that shows, any of the kink or any of that. It was very interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, I think there's more to it. That's something that I'm gonna, explore a little more, and I'm willing to bring people on that can talk about it. With regard to my family, I didn't deal with that as much because I don't consider myself light skinned at all. However, the issue.
David, hold on, David. What do you mean you don't consider yourself?
I'm not light. I'm not light. I am.
Well, what are you?
I would call myself brown. I am brown.
Listen, you're like my kid. You're like my kids. They're like a shade darker than me, and they're like team brown skin. And I'm like, no, baby.
I'm brown. And look, I'm
gonna let you be great. You're brown.
I'm brown, right? Okay. So I've been in Switzerland
for more
than a minute.
I'm gonna let you be team brown skin.
brown fits in the light skin box. So.
Your brown does fit in the light skin box, though. Do we need to go back in the day when they had to do the paper bag test? You fit the paper bag test.
I fit the paper
Oh my
God. Look. I'm telling you right now, I was in the middle of it. I told somebody, I said, I've been on both sides and in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. So there were people that did not think that I belonged in one group. There were people, and not like I set up and really cared about it, but I took notice to it.
It's something that you notice. Like I noticed, like I grew up, since I started out in New York. I just embraced all ethnicities because that's who I played with in kindergarten. That's who, I just didn't see a difference. I wasn't taught that there was a difference because of skin. I thought it was the difference because of character.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's a real thing.
Well, look, one of the things that we talked about was the DNA test, right? So you guys know that I took 23andMe because one of my friends took 23andMe, and what I found was, I am Black. I'm a Black American. I'm Black. But
I'm
now
black, y'all.
Yeah, I'm Black. All right. But now what I have is information that I didn't have before that might shed some light on what I'm interested in, why I'm living where I'm living, why I think the way I think.
That might happen. Like, it definitely tells you.
There's more.
I remember what I was getting ready to say when I was mentioning about having friends of all ethnicities, and I also have family, of course, of all ethnicities, white, Native American, Black, different religions, Muslim, Christian, atheist, all of that, right? But I realized when I moved to the South, and this is not knocking the South because there's many great things about it, but when I was having my issues with identity, it wasn't because I had an issue, it was because other people had an issue with it. I acted too white to be a Black person, and I acted too Black to be a white person. So where did I fit in? And I just realized I just had to create my own lane because I was that one. Like they literally segregated themselves in the South. Like it was not, segregation was over. But when you go to the lunchroom or you go to the playground, all the Black kids are over here, all the white kids over here, the Latinos are over here, right? I was the one that was like, this is my table and anybody can sit here.
Right.
You know,
look, you had a
we
much
weren't doing that.
You had a much different like my outlook is now what your outlook was when you were younger. However, when I moved to New Jersey, right, I had the nerve to try to run for student government in the first year. I'm like, David just got this.
That's
like
a
now I
popularity
realize,
contest, right?
That's
a popularity contest.
Yeah, I'm like, I just got there thinking I could run. Now, could you believe that?
You was about to be the HNIC up in here.
Yeah, and it was a mainstream high school, right? So I had, in other words, I had not done the homework that you're supposed to do, even on that level, right? If you're going to run for something, you got to politic, right? You gotta get in there and you got to connect with all.
You got to meet people. You got to find out what they need, what they think is the main job for the president.
Exactly. Now I lost big time, right? And couldn't believe I lost, and couldn't believe I lost. But years later, after high school, somebody said, David, if I had known you like I know you now, I would have voted for you in junior high.
Oh, wow. That's cool, though. That's super cool.
Right. So, I mean, look, but I was a little early. But and my point is, it's really important. What I've come to understand is that it's very important to be able to connect with people. And sometimes it's connecting with them where they are, not where you would like them to be. And, of course, I make that mistake a lot, even with people in my family and my friends. It really is important.
And then you have to take a step back and be like, oh, they're not there yet. Okay, I'm going to have to meet them where they're at. Maybe they'll get there one day.
You can't get mad about it. You can't get mad about it. No. Look, is there anything else that we taught? I think we covered everything You're going to be taking the DNA test soon, right? And
I
it'll be interesting.
actually just got my DNA test, and we're gonna send it off tomorrow.
Okay.
You know, because the mail doesn't run today. It is MLK Day. Happy birthday,
That's
Martin
right.
Luther King.
That's
That's
right.
what we're celebrating over here right now. And I can tell you, I actually was one of the people in the 80s who marched to make MLK Day a holiday.
Oh, really? Okay.
And yeah, I did. I was very militant. I'm not sure where that came from. If you listen to my dad's music, you might know, but
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, what the other thing I want to ask you is the Phoenix that is behind you, right? Why did you choose this to decorate your room, and what is it for you?
I've always kind of connected with this mythical phoenix, creature, the phoenix. It is a Native American thing. The phoenix is where, supposedly you die and then you come back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a car accident in 2013, and I was thrown out of the car onto my head. And I had a moment where I really believe I was dead, because I was looking down at myself on the highway. But what happened was, now my children's father had just passed like 6 months before, so we were already dealing with that, right? And then my daughter was in the car. So as I'm looking at myself down on this highway, I'm totally at peace. There's no pain, but I start hearing her scream for me, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." So I felt like almost a push, and I went back. And all I could think was, I need to find my daughter. So I start crawling towards her voice. Now, mind you, I'm laying on the highway.
Right. Okay.
Where at any moment a car could come by and run over me, right? So as I crawl off, right when I crawled off the highway, a car came by right where I was laying.
Sure.
So close to the point where she actually thought she had hit me. She stopped the car, came back, and was like, "Oh my God," she was hysterical. And my daughter was hysterical. She, thank God, was still in the car. She got like a tiny scratch. I was all messed up. I mean, I was like, I had road rash all the way down my face. I thought I was gonna have scars like the half-faced dude on the
Batman or something
on the
like
cartoons. Like, I thought that's what was gonna be me. I broke my arm. My whole scalp came off.
What?
Yes.
Holy.
So they had to shave my head.
Yeah.
And put it back together with 82 staples and 8 stitches.
So
I
wait
really
a minute.
believe that. Yes.
But so but I mean, like with now, like everything is, well, that was how many years ago?
That was in 2013. I still, to this day, still pull scabs out of my scalp. It's still healing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still healing. But I said that to say this. After I started healing, I started driving back immediately. Now, was I scared? Terrified.
Yeah.
But what I decided while I was healing is that this is my, I feel, second chance at this lifetime, because I was reborn.
Right.
And I am going to live it to the fullest. I'm not going to sit in my house a little bit scared to drive. I'm just going to drive anyway, scared.
Right.
Right. And so, that's really the meaning of the Phoenix, that I do, I feel like this is my second life. I died and was reborn, and, I see things a lot differently. I see life differently. Little things don't stress me out. I used to get all up in arms when my kids wouldn't do their chores and my house wasn't completely clean, or, all of the little things that get on people's nerves, and they get all upset, and I don't have time for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you've gone through that process once, it's not, I think it does something to you. I mean, I have not had anything like that happen to me, but I think I was telling you before.
I hope you never do. I hope you never do.
I was, the reason why I took flamenco was to heal from something that I was very close to, I felt, dying or passing away.
Right.
And it was what I think the difference is, yours happened suddenly, right?
Right.
It was a sudden impact. What I believe with what happened to me, that it was gradual, And
Yes.
all of a sudden I turned around and I was down on the ground. Right.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and think about all of the different signals that my body was saying, like, you're
Was
not
given.
well, you're not
Yes.
well, you're not
Yes.
well. And
Yes.
I wasn't able to hear it.
Right.
Wasn't able to hear
I
it.
went through something similar too, because I was having health issues before this car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was healing from the accident, I really made it my business to holistically heal my entire body.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost 150 pounds over the past few years as well.
Wow. Congratulations.
And that has been a concerted effort of, dance, which I hate exercise, but I love dance. So I just decided I'm just going to dance every day.
Yeah.
Now, what does that do? Dance makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dancing and you're feeling the music, right? I know you can feel, you can get with this, then you feel happy. So just the process of doing that helped bring me out of, depression from being, sick and, not being able to do all the things that I wanted to do with my kids at the time because of my health issues. And I've gradually been able to get that health back. And I'm real grateful for dance and eating right, and drinking plenty of water. I think that's the main key.
I think it's fantastic. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, I know you're probably sick of just telling you this, but I mean, it's almost like, I found someone who, again, I'll put it this way.
We see each other.
Yeah. It's funny because when I came to Europe, I was trying to put a dance company together, and it was like, we did okay. But then the person that ends up being the best dancer who understood what I was talking about was my niece, right? So I was like, I'm looking all around, and there she is, right? And it's very similar here, right? Where, I one of the reasons why, let's put it this way, one of the reasons why I created the format or the forum for this was to get people that thought like us onto the channel, right?
Yes.
And there are not a lot of people there weren't a lot of people that I felt really got it. So I said, look, I'm just going to start putting people on. So then
just put it together.
Yeah. And my intent was to interview Gary, but it was Gary as a collective of all of these different.
Well, you got the first daughter in here.
Look, before we go, just if you can give us a sample, not a sample, what do you say? Like singing something. It can be like, a phrase or this. I just want to hear or have it recorded. What you can, yeah.
At last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. Oh yeah, at last, the skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover the night I looked at you. Little something.
Look, thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me. I'm very honored to be a part of this.
Thank you.
And if I can ask, guys to tune in to my Facebook, go into my Instagram. I am Harmony.Bartz, Bartz on both. So you could come and check out what we're doing. We got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, this is it, man. All right, my friend, my cousin, my
homie. You're my brother from another mother. Even though we're cousins.
Clearly, right? There's more coming when you get them DNAs, those results.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going. You're gonna be one of the first phone calls I make once we get our results back.
Take care of yourself.
And just right quick, I want you to meet my cousin.
Wait, the phone is off. Can you?
Hold on.
Wait,
Okay, here we go. There's my
Hey,
cousin.
hello.
Hi.
We're the
Hello.
ones getting ready to do the 23andMe DNA together.
Well, it's very nice to meet. What's your name again? I'm sorry.
I'm Julie Alexander. I'm the cousin in the background.
Yeah, she's the cousin in the background. She's my
So
my
you
mother
also a
and her
musician as
father.
well, right? Is she a
Say that
musician,
again?
singer?
She plays violin, and she's a poet. So yeah, that's
Wow. Well,
and
you
she's
got
a
it. You
dancer.
got
I
it.
forgot about that. She's a dancer. Yes.
She's
yes.
a dancer as well.
Yeah.
So you got it from
Yes, I
both.
was
You got it
supposed
from.
to, but I need to get back into because
Uh-huh.
I ended up, life had to give up the classes. So
Life and kids sometimes happens, right?
Right. Well, look, you got it from both sides, in the middle and the back. You really, it's.
Yeah. I did.
Well, take care. I'll be in touch with you, like when we get
All
off,
right.
and then we figure out what we're gonna put in the description box and so on.
All right. Sounds good. Mwah. Love you.
Bye bye.
Peace.